Welcome to M&A Unpacked, the weekly show where we bring on experts in MSP M&A, case studies from those who've gone through or going through the process, and top M&A and business minds to help you maximize the value of your MSP, whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to improve your business. Make sure to subscribe to the Kaseya YouTube channel so you know when new episodes drop, and you can even save the M&A Unpacked playlist for easy access. So today I am joined by Michael Ifraimov from Netshurit. Michael, welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me, Mike.
So let's start with your background. And actually, before we even start with that, just tell us a little bit, give me a high level about Netshurit.
Sure. So we're a traditional managed service provider, MSP, originally founded and headquartered in South Africa. Although in the last number of years, we've grown into the US and all the M&A activity that we've done, well, almost all of it has been in the US market. So more and more, or a lot of our people are in the US. The revenue certainly is predominantly the US as well. So we're more and more becoming a more US-centric focus, but still have a large presence in South Africa.
Cool. And I know, let's start with your background. You were, we've talked before, so I know you were an investment banker before joining Netshurit. What drew you to this space, to the MSP space, and how has your finance and private equity experience shaped your approach to M&A?
Sure. So I had experience, as you mentioned, within investment banking, and I actually covered the TMT, what's known as the technology, media, and telecommunications vertical, for about 6 years prior to joining Netshurit. So an opportunity to enter the MSP space was really exciting to me because there's a significant volume of M&A activity in this industry, as you all know, as both founder-led companies make smaller MSP acquisitions to gain scale, and private equity continues to make inroads into the space in leaps and bounds. I think when you look at the MSP space, it has necessary ingredients that make it ripe for consolidation, not to mention all the necessary features that make it attractive for private equity firms to enter the space. Namely, some of these are a deeply fragmented space with a large number of smaller operators. Depending on what data set you look at, there's about 50,000 or so MSPs in North America. Significant ability to scale, contracted recurring revenue streams, sticky customer relationships, and high margins and free cash flows. When you look at the space starting in 2018, private equity really started making inroads in the space with over 20 private equity MSP acquisitions in that year. Acquisitions of larger MSPs of quite a bit of scale are predominantly private equity driven, with a large number of PE firms still looking to make a platform acquisition in the space. And as you mentioned, we do employ pretty unique structures when transacting an acquisition. And my experience in the deal world, both in investment banking and private equity before joining Netshurit, has really helped in employing different transaction and financing structures. Additionally, I think coming from the deal world has helped in that I had access to investment banks, financial advisors, and sources of capital. And we've not only helped us find transactions, but also helped with the financing of those deals as well.
Awesome. And you guys have completed 10 M&A deals since 2016, if I have my information correct, and will correct me if I'm wrong, with most happening in the last 2 to 3 years. So what's driving the acceleration, and how do you identify the right MSPs to acquire?
Sure. Yeah, you have it right. Since 2016, we acquired 10, and the last 5 of those were actually in the last 18, 24 months. I think having a function that's solely dedicated to M&A, with me joining the company about almost 3 years ago now, has really helped drive that acceleration. We've taken on, since then, on a much more institutionalized approach to M&A. I think that, coupled with what I just mentioned earlier, the significant increase in M&A activity in the sector has really driven the acceleration as well. We have a specific set of criteria that make an MSP a good acquisition target for us, which I'll cover here in a little bit of detail soon. But above all, our number one deciding factor is culture. We have a very unique culture that defines who we are at Netshurit, which is at the very heart of our cause and purpose of supporting the dreams of the doers for all employees, clients, and partners. I think one thing that we do differently from some of the other operators is that we have several meetings with the owners and other key management team members of potential acquisition opportunities right up front. And just to ensure that there's a right fit and cultural alignment between the organizations, because we've seen firsthand that is the most important thing that can make or break a deal. So we like to ensure there's the right cultural fit right at the very beginning of our due diligence process.
So you when we talked, you had mentioned that Netshurit is founder backed and not private equity funded, which is kind of starting to be unique in the MSP consolidation space. What advantages and challenges does this approach bring to your acquisition strategy?
Mike, we're the only MSP that I know of, at least, that has been able to complete 10 M&A transactions with no institutional outside equity capital, which is quite amazing, actually, and very unique. I think one of the advantages here from that approach is that we're nimble than some of the PE-backed consolidators and can act a lot more quickly. Another key advantage is that we're operators ourselves. So our approach to M&A comes from a very strategic and operational perspective and not necessarily purely financial. And I think a lot of the MSP owners that we speak to regularly appreciate that and really value the partnership approach that we embody to deals. I think the biggest challenge, though, is coming at acquisitions from a bootstrap perspective is limited access to capital. We don't have the deep pockets of capital that our PE-backed brethren do. So unfortunately, can't afford to pay the highest valuation, nor can we offer the most upfront cash in the transaction structure. Having said that, though, I think the fact that we've been able to close on 5 acquisitions within the last 18 months in a very competitive space, as you mentioned, where we're going up against some of those same PE firms on those deals, speaks to our unique culture and the eagerness of a lot of MSP owners to join us on our journey to becoming a best-in-class MSP and the consolidator of choice in the industry.
Okay, so you've seen firsthand how MSPs operate before an acquisition. So what are the most common mistakes that you see owners making that negatively impact valuation, and what can they do to maximize their business value?
That's a great question, Mike. I think I've probably looked at hundreds of MSP acquisition opportunities since I joined the firm. I think one of the most common missteps MSP owners make is not investing in sales and marketing to drive revenue growth. Many of these business owners and the businesses really are, especially on the lower end, with sales that are lower than $6 or $7 million and under $1 million of EBITDA, are lifestyle businesses, really. So they're not being run to maximize revenue. If the owner or owners can consistently withdraw 6, 7, 800 grand annually, then they're satisfied. So there's no real impetus to turn up the dial on revenue growth. Another common misstep that we've seen is the businesses are not professionalized. Many times there may not be a CFO or finance accounting function in-house, as that may be outsourced. So as a result, sometimes margins tend to suffer as the cost structure may not be optimized. There may be pricing increases with customers who have been paying the same price for years that can be easily implemented that are not. Or sometimes we see contracts that are long expired and need to be renewed, but haven't been looked at for a while. So what we've found is that standard operating procedures as well are missing. So there's no standard way of doing things, whether it be internal within the organization or external customer facing. So there's just a lack of institutionalized processes for a lot of these smaller companies. Some of the things that they can do to maximize value is just some of the items that I just went through. Investing in organic revenue growth alone can lead to a significant increase in value for a lot of these companies. Other things they can do is just professionalize the organization and institutionalize processes and procedures, both internal and external, right-sizing the cost structure to improve their margins. And what we found is having a good finance and accounting function in-house can really go a long way and be a strategic benefit to a lot of these business owners.
So of all those things, I had a question for you. Do you see one or more of these things, or do you see like companies that coming to you are in better shape than you would expect, or do you see, okay, typically I see these 3 things?
That's a great question, Mike. I think on the lower end, particularly when you're under, let's call it $1.5 million of EBITDA, the most common thing we've seen is there's no sales or marketing organization. The business owner, the CEO, is the sales engine. So there's no separate sales team, there's no separate marketing function. And if they do, then they don't really see the marketing ROI dollars. So there's no institutionalized process around sales or revenue growth. I think that's one thing that we've seen time and again on all, especially on the lower end of the marketplace. One other thing we've seen is one of the things I mentioned earlier. There's no finance and accounting function. So it may be a small CPA firm that's outsourced, that's handling the books and records of the company. So the owner may have any idea what EBITDA margins are or adjusted EBITDA margins might be. So a lot of times there's costs in there that the owner has no idea that they can actually just easily take out. So I think in MSPs generally it would be beneficial for them to have an accounting and finance function in-house. Just having a CFO can really be a strategic benefit, and I do think they can drive value in the process, whether it be putting on customer price increases that the business can easily put on, or cutting out costs, right-sizing the cost structure and improving margins. So little things like that go a long way, and I think a lot of these business owners can benefit quite a lot from a finance and accounting function in-house.
And I heard you say that the thing you typically see is no sales and marketing engine. So if you're giving advice to those, $2 million or so $2 million in revenue MSPs, and you see that typically, what would you coach them on how to start, where to start, or typically do you coach them on that? And if so, what do you say to them? Because that's obviously daunting, and sometimes they don't know where to start.
Yeah, no, I think having at least having a few salespeople, having a key sales focused person outside of the business owner that's driving revenue growth and that's really just focused on it. Having a team potentially of hunters and then some farmers. I think that goes a long way in helping sales growth. But again, a lot of times, a lot of these business owners, the owner is the one that's driving sales. So I think just having one person outside of the business owner, because as you know, the business owner is focused on a million other things outside of sales. So running the operation, a lot of times these guys are doing their own financing, their own finance, their own accounting. So I think having a sales function outside the business owner so that he can focus on client relationships, but also the myriad other things that business owners and entrepreneurs have to focus on, as you know. And then having a sales team, or at least one or two people that's clearly just focused on sales and nothing else. I think that drives a lot of value, and that can drive a lot of value for a lot of these folks.
Awesome. For MSP owners listening right now who might be considering selling, what does an ideal acquisition target look like for Netshurit? Specific revenue ranges, service offerings, geographic locations you focus on. Let everybody know who's the right candidate to raise their hand and take a call with you.
No, and thanks for mentioning that. I'll have a shameless plug for Netshurit at this point, I suppose. I kind of touched on this a bit earlier with one of the earlier questions that you asked, but we have a two-pronged approach to M&A. There's a few things that make an MSP an ideal acquisition target for us. So one is our core MSP thesis, which includes the following attributes. MSPs with an SMB focus, which we define internally as 25 to 1,000 plus users. High revenue growth rate of at least ideally 10% or so, minimum EBITDA margin of 15%, EBITDA of at least 500,000 and above, minimum recurring revenues of 60%, Microsoft-centered technology stack, and a geographic focus on the US. So almost all the acquisitions that we've made historically have all met these criteria, and we're certainly going to continue doing deals that fit this mold, if that's our bread and butter. But over and above that, we've also identified several highly strategic focused areas with respect to M&A that we're going to explore. Some of these include vertical focused MSPs, such as guys that are just focused and have a niche on financial services or healthcare, for example. MSPs with deep Microsoft expertise and capabilities, such as cloud solutions, security partners, app development with low code or no code, Teams and Power BI, data and analytics tools. MSPs with AI and automation technology, with advanced offerings in AI and automation for the SMB universe. And then MSPs leveraging low-cost geographies to enhance our low-cost support model. So this would include MSPs with nearshoring or offshoring capabilities and folks with expertise in select markets like Mexico, for example. So again, if you're an MSP owner that meets any of these criteria that I just went through and are interested in potentially exploring liquidity options, I'd love to have a conversation.
And how do folks get in touch with you?
So if you go to our website, actually, Netshurit.com, there's a portion of the website, Sell Us Your Company, where if you actually put in your name, email, and contact info, it actually goes straight to me, and we can arrange a call that way. Or Mike, if you want to bring up my email address, it's michael.ifraimov, so my first .net, last name at Netshurit.com. Would love to have a conversation, and I'm very responsive on email, so would easily set up a brief phone call, introductory phone call.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your busy day to share with the MSP community. And for everyone watching, we thank you, and tune in again on the Kaseya YouTube channel for another episode of M&A Unpacked. And if you're not yet a member of the M&A Concierge platform for MSPs, make sure to apply today. This is an amazing platform and is 100% free for both buyers and sellers. See you next time, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.